everyone, and welcome to the Tom Baker Show. It's great to have you with us wherever you are tuning us in from. We are very thankful to have you. We hope that you're going to enjoy what we have to talk about on the show, because boy, is it a lot. Jacob Seelman, once again, my co-host as always. He is the editor of Steering Wheel Nation. He is also the Open Wheel content editor for our Inside Groove Pit Pass community. And we'll tell you more about that if we get a chance later. We're also going to do a feature about that on next week's show, so stay tuned for that. But Jacob, the NASCAR world has opened with a bit of ironic humor.
That it has, and that's going to lead right into our starting line here on this show. And I've decided on the spot here in the middle of taping this show that at some point here, I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but at some point here, and I'll just break it out one night and surprise you, but my plan is I need to get a little green flag for my desk that I can wave for the starting line, because why not? Because why not, right?
Why not?
Yes, ironic humor in full force, because if we sit back and think, even 10 weeks ago, maybe, give or take, there was still thought then, as the antitrust lawsuit started between 23XI Racing Front Row and NASCAR, that, okay, if this doesn't get settled and figured out, is there even going to be a 23XI Racing still in NASCAR when all's said and done? Obviously, we know what the outcome to that was. And in the ironic humor of the century department, 23XI Racing keeps winning. They won the lawsuit by getting NASCAR to settle. They won the Daytona 500 with Tyler Reddick, and now they've won at Echo Park Speedway with Tyler Reddick, the artist formerly known as Atlanta Motor Speedway. We'll open right away. Seelman stat of the week. Tyler Reddick is now the 6th driver in NASCAR Cup Series history to win back-to-back Cup Series races to open a season, and he is the first driver to do so since Matt Kenseth in 2009. A little bit of ironic humor there. Matt Kenseth now works with Toyota, just not at 23XI. He's over at Legacy Motor Club, but still underneath the manufacturer umbrella, if you will. Marvin Panch, by the way, was the first to do that. That was all the way back in 1957 when he won the first 2 races of a season. Among the others to do it, David Pearson did it in 1976. Jeff Gordon did so in 1997 as well. To name I haven't named all 6 of them, but that's at least several of the 6. So Reddick in a very exclusive club, if you will. I'll ask you, I know what my answer to this question is, but I'll ask you first. What's your biggest takeaway, or can we have a takeaway from the early success for 23XI Racing? Because we're 2 races in, both have been on drafting tracks, even though Atlanta's kind of a hybrid intermediate drafting track compared to a true draft race like Daytona or Talladega. Can we truly discern anything from this, or do we have to see a little bit bigger sample size before you're ready to author a takeaway from, hey, Tyler Reddick's on top of the points in a big way right now?
Well, that's the takeaway, isn't it? I mean, that's on paper, right? He's he's almost a full race ahead of everybody at this point already.
40 points. So it's more than half a race already.
Right. So, he's got a big cushion. But like you pointed out, these first 2 are drafting tracks, or as I call them, coal trickle tracks, because there's always a big wreck that changes the complexion and takes a bunch of guys out that could have won, right? So can we conclude anything about who's running good, who's going to be good, No, I don't think you can conclude anything from these first 2 races. Kyle Busch was fast both races. All he has is a 15th and a DNF wreck, because he got wrecked to show for it, right?
He got obliterated at Atlanta.
He did, and I just don't. So no, I don't think you can really conclude much. I will say this: I do believe 2311 is out for a little bit of vengeance this year, not because of the lawsuit, but just because I feel like last year that team as a whole was the almost but not quite team of the year. It just didn't have the success that they wanted. So, I think that in that aspect, sure, they want to go out, but no, I think we need about 3 or 4 races, from now to really, have a big enough data sample, about a quarter of the season to see where we're going with this. Remember too, that this is not win and you're in anymore, though Tyler Reddick probably wishes it was.
Yeah, for real.
He'd be in twice. But,
True statement.
Double word score for winning the first 2. I think it's going to take a few races. We go to a road course now. So obviously, by the time this next show airs, we'll have run COTA, and you'll probably have seen Shane Van Gisbergen, Connor Zilic, a lot of those guys running for the win. And so it's a whole different mix of drivers when we do that. So I think it takes 5 or 6 weeks into the season. These 2 races are great races for entertainment as far as action packed and all that. Atlanta was, I thought, the truck race, the O'Reilly race were both fantastic races. The Cup race was messy, but still entertaining. And, in the end, Tyler Reddick wins the first 2. And the only thing we can definitively say from this, in my opinion, is Tyler Reddick's off to a heck of a start in the points.
He is. Now, I want to add a couple of addendums here. The first addendum is actually to the stat of the week, because the 1A, okay, 6 drivers have won back-to-back to start the season. Reddick is one of those. 1B, no driver has ever won 3 straight Cup Series races to open a season. Why is that important, however? And this is also an addendum to what you just said about, we can't necessarily conclude anything yet. We need to throw Tyler Reddick into this hat at Circuit of the Americas, because if we remember back a couple years, Tyler Reddick won at Circuit of the Americas and did so in quite convincing fashion. Now, I will say to that, he did not have to contend with Shane Van Gisbergen in that race. However, Shane himself has said that of the road courses on the Cup Series schedule, Circuit of the Americas is the one that he has had the most struggle adapting to, or really wrapping his arms around in these cars compared to some of the others. Could that play a factor? We'll see. But I just don't want to write off Tyler Reddick as, he's only good because we've had 2 drafting races. He has a chance to go 3 in a row, because he, of everybody, has been very, very good and very, very consistent at Circuit of the Americas over the past 3 or 4 years that we've been there.
Well, fair enough. But I guess my point is that you ask the question, can we conclude anything? No. Other than Tyler Reddick's large points lead, which could go away just as quickly if he has a bad stretch.
Sure.
If he wins at COTA or runs up front, then we know that it's not just the drafting track effect. He's actually got a solid race car, and he's off to a solid start for the season. I just never get too hasty coming out of Daytona and Atlanta.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, Circuit of the Americas 2023 was the first race that Tyler Reddick won in a 2311 racing car. So, and he's been 5th, 1st, 5th, and 3rd in the last 4 races there. That's a pretty darn good record, and
sure
he was 3rd one year ago. So, I think it would be very, very foolish to not put him in the mix at the bare minimum for Circuit of the Americas. Now,
agreed.
That being said, there is one other thing we can conclude that has nothing to do solely with Tyler Reddick. Dear artist that will always be known as Atlanta Motor Speedway to you, me, and a few others. Sorry, Echo Park Automotive. I refuse. I refuse. It's always going to be Atlanta. Regardless, everybody there needs to take a bow because I will be the first person to say I was a dead set against. I despised it when they announced it. I thought it was going to be the worst thing on the face of planet Earth. That might be a slight exaggeration, but regardless, I thought when they announced the reconfiguration for that track in 2000 ahead of 2022. I was terrified. We had what drivers loved as a tire management track, really put a lot into the drivers' hands. And they went and, as a lot of people would say, ruined
Yeah.
it. Well,
Yeah.
okay, they ruined one good thing, but I feel like they gave us back a different good thing. And I'm curious your thoughts on this. I feel like it's been a good thing for that track and these fans in the sense that, yes, it's a different style of racing. But if you couldn't be entertained by the three shows that we saw at Atlanta, I don't know what to tell you, truthfully. I really don't, because I was on the edge of my seat slash couch cushion, because there was one race that it was a couch cushion this weekend for me. But regardless, it was dramatic. It was fun. I I loved it. And to me, Tom, it felt like a little bit more of the old style drafting races where handling mattered. If you had a good handling car, you could work your way to where you needed to be. If Tyler Reddick's car hadn't handled good, he couldn't have done anything because there was no right front fender on that race car.
Well, you're right, and I agree with everything you said, except for the very first thing you said, which was I was scared, and when I was cheering for them to change it. I was sick and tired of Atlanta. It got to the point where I think Atlanta really was the impetus for the stage coming in, because fans were complaining that at tracks like Atlanta, there were no doggone cautions, and the cars would just, get all separated and just run forever, and nobody was really racing because the track was awful. But when they redid it, I love the concept that they came up with for it. I was all for it, and it has proven to be, in my opinion, honestly, I enjoyed that, even though, again, we had the Cole Trickle wreck in the Cup race. I enjoyed that race more than I enjoyed Daytona, and I enjoyed all three divisions. I mean, it was as you say, you could move around. It was a great race weekend in Atlanta, except for the cold temperatures on Sunday, but it wasn't cold on my couch.
Yeah, it was.
My living room was toasty. So it was a lot of fun to watch, and I do agree. I think Atlanta, I think they did the right thing. Don't know if I'd want to see a bunch of copycats of that as good as it is, because then it becomes less exciting. The more you make something natural, the less, exciting it is. So, but totally happy with Atlanta. Absolutely.
So the simple answer to the question of has it been a good thing for the track, your vote is yes.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
I do have to agree with you there. And I'll amend slightly what I said, just from a context of, I loved the fact, people are going to complain, lack of natural cautions. I loved the fact that the cheese grater surface, before they redid it, put so much into the driver's hands, and maybe I'm a little bit of a racing purist in that regard.
I agree with you in that part, but
I can grudgingly understand that sometimes we do have to do a little bit for the sake of entertainment. We are in an entertainment business as much as we are in a sporting business.
But let's keep in mind, Jacob, that this surface is aging. Okay, this surface will
getting
become
better and better and better as.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, but there's more of a multi-groove element to it. And
yes,
I think that's what makes it so exciting.
That's fair.
So,
I'll give you that.
I think they did great. What's next?
Well, the biggest news of the news week thus far.
Oh
Um,
boy, here we go.
so obviously, everybody knows that since Kevin Harvick has retired from NASCAR racing, he's taken to running the late model, running against his son Keelan, and Keelan
Getting
in
his
his
butt
own
kicked
right, yeah, yeah, several times getting his butt
most of the
kicked
time.
by Keelan. Regardless, Keelan's a prospect. I think we all admit that.
He sure
Um,
is.
that being said, the manufacturer wars for Keelan Harvick's services have been decided for the time being, and Toyota Racing Development, unsurprisingly, because it's the most fleshed out of all the development pipelines at this point and has been for a long time, TRD has won the Keelan Harvick sweepstakes, announcing that they have signed him to a multi-year, whatever multi-year, long-term
More
agreement
than one.
means. Well, I get that. You know where I was going. Whatever distance multi-year long-term agreement means for Keelan Harvick, Toyota Racing Development has signed Keelan to that. I'll let you start because you and I disagree on the fact that this is that whether or not this is big news. Why,
Oh,
in your mind, is this not big news?
well, I don't think it's big news because if something when I look at something as big news, it's something to me that's either shocking or is just sort of anti, not expected, or just this radical thing that happens and it's big news. I don't find this big news because I don't believe that this in and of itself does anything for Keelan Harvick that Kevin Harvick and his network and his resources and KHI couldn't have done. I think for Keelan, it's a badge. It's basically now he's going to be a Toyota kid. Yes, he'll have their sim. Yes, he'll probably have, ExxonMobil or whoever, Toyota. So, yeah, he gets sponsorship. But to me, Keelan Harvick was going to make it to Cup regardless. I don't think this dramatically changes Keelan Harvick's fortunes. It just puts him over there instead of over here. And I also don't when people think, well, I look at Toyota, it's like he's going to go through the pipeline. Where is he going to be? Okay, is it going to be 2311? Is it going to be Gibbs? Is it going to be where is it going to be? Legacy? I mean, he's got 5 years before he can run Cup. He'll probably be in a truck in a couple years, Arco, whatever. I just don't find this to be huge news because I don't think it really matters in terms of Keelan's future. He was always going to have one, just like Brexton Bush will. And so I just don't, I think the biggest impact this may have is actually on all the other drivers in Toyota's system, because now Keelan Harvick's taken up a spot that someone else who really needs their resources and could benefit from them in a measurable way, maybe could have had that spot, and now he's going to be sitting there. That's why I don't think this is huge news. I'm not insulting it. I think it's great for Keelan, but I just don't feel like it changes his fortune in a measurable way because he was always going to get where he needed to go.
I agree with all of that. I will counter with saying it's big news in the sense of who Keelan Harvick is. Okay, this is the latest flashy big name that Toyota has thrown into the TD2, which is Toyota Driver Development, for those that haven't heard
Correct.
that
Yeah.
reference before, pipeline. I have a rant here, and I'm
Uh-oh.
probably going to make a few Harvick family fans a little miffed at me for
Okay,
making
now be
this
nice.
point. But you know what? Here's the long and short of this. I want to remind people, Keelan Harvick is 13. I'm a little bit, actually, not a little bit, I'm a lot of bit tired of these development programs thinking that we need to put the pipeline badge and all this pressure, expectations, we're going to catapult you all the way to the sky and get you in. I'm tired of this for kids whose brains aren't even fully developed to the point that they have a road driver's license yet. Come on, guys, what are we doing? I know Kevin's been the one that's been the most outspoken about, age limits and potentially wanting them to be lowered in some cases, obviously because he wants Keelan to be able to do more things now. And I've been a little miffed when I've heard Kevin mention things like that on his podcast too. Why are we trying to rush these kids up the ladder when we don't need to? You and I have had this discussion, I think even on this show at one point, about the fact that this whole belief of, if you're not in, O'Reilly or Cup by the time you're 18, it's looked at as this awful thing. Like, I don't know where we lost the plot here, guys. Just because you're not in a cup car by the time you're 18 doesn't mean you failed at a professional level. It just means you're taking your time to do it right. I think, honestly, this is going to be, I won't say a negative thing, but unnecessary and undue pressure on Keelan, because once you get into that Toyota driver development program, for better or worse, you're looked at differently, because Toyota has built that program as you're expected to win. It's not okay, go out, build, and when you win, great. You're looked at in that program as you're expected to win now. And okay. I know Keelan's been doing some winning in the late model recently, but I just don't think that whether it's Keelan or whether your name's Jim Bob Smith, I just don't think we need to be putting this level of spotlight and expectations on kids that are this young. I've believed it for a while, and now I'm saying it.
All right, well, that was probably the most Tom Baker-like rant I've ever heard you do, Jacob Seelman, so I'm proud of you, kid. Do you honestly, just give me a yes or no here, do you honestly think that just being called a Toyota driver puts more pressure and it creates a bigger stage for a kid with the last name Harvick to win a race than he's already had for the first, 8 years of his racing career? Do you really believe that?
Honestly, at least a little bit, yes, I still do believe that. And it's
interesting.
It's because of the success that so many of these Toyota drivers have had. It generates that extra pressure. It generates that spotlight because people like Christopher Bell, like Corey Heim, have succeeded the way they have. It just ramps it up for everybody else.
Well, I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I think Keelan is oblivious to it, honestly. I think he's a very humble, sort of easygoing kid.
I hope he is. I hope he's oblivious to it, and I hope it doesn't do one thing to change him, because I will be the first to say I love what I've seen from Keelan so far.
Me too.
He's a smart driver. I don't want to see this put him in a position to, I guess, crack under the pressure would be the way I would put it.
I don't think we got to worry about that. I think for him, this is just almost excess. Like, he was going to get there anyway. So to me, it's just not that big of a story. But, I wish Keelan all the best, because I do. I think he's a great kid. I think Kevin and Delana have done a good job. With that, we're going to take a break and come back with more of the Tom Baker Show right after this.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details. and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the show, and we've had time for Jacob's blood pressure to return to normal. And so now we continue with more topics, and I think we're going to talk about some ASCS sprint car stuff.
Yes, we're headed to the dirt, my favorite subject. And there's a couple things to do with the ASCS. As we are taping this show, they are in the middle of a 4-race over 2-weekend stand at Casa Grande, Arizona's Central Arizona Speedway. So 2 races already complete. Race 1 won by the Rudine Racing Justin Peck 26 crew, and the second race won by longtime ASCS veteran Matt Covington of Oklahoma, who broke a bit of a winless drought that he had been on to get back to ASCS victory lane. And Tom, I kind of love this. It's a little bit of an interesting dichotomy that we've had, not just with the 2 drivers who won races, but you had JP, who easily looked like he could have just blasted him on night 2 as well before a flat tire put an end to what looked like it was going to be 2 races, 2 Justin Peck victories. But really, the driver that really stuck out to me over all of this, was outside of JP, was 15-year-old Levi Hillier, who is also in a Rudine racing car. Justin's kind of been a little bit of a mentor to Levi over these last couple of races, before he gets set to go on the 410 side with High Limit again this season. I just love this about sprint car racing, that you can have the young guns really come in and make a splash, and yet when the tracks get tricky, that veteran experience shines through like it did with Covington. That high lane cushion came in and he just went, bye.
Well, yeah, that's what dirt track is, right? And it can change so much from night to night too, and that's why it's hard when you're doing these multiple night shows, multi-day events. It's hard for the same guy to dominate all 3 days, because there's always subtle differences, and sometimes you hit it, sometimes you don't. That's why I love these traveling series like this, because you just never know from night to night who's going to be the hot hand, and Justin definitely had them covered.
For sure. I will ask your thoughts also. When the 2026 schedule for ASCS was first announced, 35 dates. By the time we get done at Central Arizona, we'll be barely out of the month of February, and we will already be 20% of the way through the scheduled ASCS calendar, 7 of those 35 races between Volusia Speedway Park and Central Arizona Speedway. That seemed a bit odd for me on paper, and now that I'm seeing it in practice, it seems even more odd, if I'm being totally honest. Do you like the idea of 20% of the schedule being split between 2 racetracks? Because the more I see it in practice, I don't like this.
Well, if we had a 60 race series from Volusia, with the way Volusia the track was for the Dirt Car Nationals, run them, man. Let's go down
Fair
there.
enough.
We'll all buy, we'll all get bed and breakfasts and, high out together for the season and just have a good time. I don't know. It's weird. It does feel weird. I don't know if it's bad. I don't really know why they did it, to be honest. I'm a little confused why ASCS set this up this way. But I can't argue with the product they put out. I mean, it's been enjoyable to watch. It's just, I agree with you. It's just a little weird. It doesn't feel right.
No, and after the second set of races at Central Arizona, we sit on our hands for 5 weeks before they get back to it in the middle of April. That part I definitely don't like.
Yeah, that's what's strange.
Sure. I digress, though, to from dirt sprint cars to pavement sprint cars. I want to give a shout out to a driver who left New Smyrna Speedway a little bit pissed off and decided to take out his frustrations on the rest of the field when they got to Showtime Speedway, because the winged portion of the Dave Steele Championship, non-winged portion. Had that backwards. The non-winged portion of the Dave Steele Championship, Bobby Santos just smashed him. He won the 125-lap feature on day 1 at Showtime Speedway, and then the winged Twin 40s, Colton Bettis, Colt the Bolt, 16 years old, who has been winning sprint car races since he was 12. Oh, by the way, Colton won both 40-lap wing features at Showtime to cap that weekend off. There's another youth versus experience bit between Bobby the Third and Colton. Tom, I don't know if you've gotten to see a lot of Colt race, but I think a lot of people are going to learn about him real quick on the must-see racing schedule this year.
He is a stout young racer. I think on the dirt, we've talked about Paulie Hartwig the third. On the pavement, I think Colt is really almost the equivalent of Paulie on the dirt. And
you were right the first time on the pavement, because on the pavement.
But what I'm saying is open wheel versus modified is what I was trying to get to.
I knew where you were going.
Yeah, I think those two, and it's kind of a thing where with Colton, of course, home state Florida.
That
doesn't hurt. And he's. I remember Bobby Santos when he was Colton's age, and Colton is an awful lot like Bobby Santos was at that age. And I think, I think it's ironic that those two ended up splitting the wins down there at Showtime. But yeah, I think Paulie in the roof cars and Colton in the sprint cars are very much the same. They are young drivers who are older than their age on the track and off it, both very mature and humble. And I think both of them have got a big future.
I think Colton does too, especially if he can go on tour this year and really turn heads. I think Colt has a very, very bright future in winged and non-winged sprint car racing. I'll go so far as to say that. Speaking of cars with roofs, let's go back to the dirt and go to the late model set for just a second. The Nick Hoffman show has continued in the World of Outlaws late model series. Nick beat Bobby Pierce to win the Swamp Cabbage 100 at Hendry County Motorsports Park, which also gets my vote for the zaniest name for a race that I have ever heard in dirt circles. I'm not sure what a swamp cabbage is. Somebody from the state of Florida might have to explain that to me at some point. But regardless, bigger point here. Is Nick Hoffman suddenly the early favorite for the World of Outlaws late model crown, or are we underestimating Bobby Pierce?
I think Nick Hoffman's the favorite every time he sits in a car. He is on a roll right now. And I mean, not only does he build, I'm not going to say they're the best cars, because I don't want to sound like I'm doing a commercial for him, but he builds some of the best cars to ever be created for late model. I mean, he just builds great stuff, but he's also a great driver. And I think sometimes people get, They get so caught up in the stuff he builds, they forget how good he is on the track. I think this is Nick Hoffman right now. Now Bobby's great, but I think Nick Hoffman is the early guy to beat right now in this part of the season.
Last point for this segment, the International Hot Rod Association, I'm going to argue, might need to come up with a new name before too long, because IHRA is still in the buying business, and they have added even more. Atlanta Dragway has gone into the portfolio, and they announced, actually, just before we started taping this show, that their portfolio now has surpassed 110 sanctioned tracks worldwide, and they have become the global leader in sanctioning for drag racing facilities across the world. That's 70% more compared to last season. That is wild to my brain. 58 of those coming since December alone. How big is this?
Well, it's huge. Daryl Cuddle, look, this guy is no joke. He's got the money. He's put the right people in the right places. He's doing this to leave a legacy because he loves racing and wants to make a positive impact on the lower levels of a bunch of different types of the sport. And that's exactly what he's doing. This is something that we've never seen in the sport before. And I think this is one of the biggest stories right now of the motorsports world. And I think it bears watching as a lot of these tracks get refinished and resurfaced or whatever and get open. I think this is going to be a huge story all through 2026, and we're surely going to keep an eye on it here. We're going to take another break. When we come back, it'll be time for our last lap. There's more on the other side of this.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the show. It is time for the last lap. And Jacob, what have we got in store for that today?
Well, number one, the Smart Modifieds are back. They kick off their 2026 season at Florence Motor Speedway in South Carolina. And I am curious, Tom, in your mind, going into the season, is the biggest story Luke Baldwin going for a potential three-peat, Hermie Sadler showing up to race the opener because he can, or something else?
Both A and B. I think Luke had a phenomenal season last year. And by the way, for those who don't know, the Smart Modified Tour is a Southern modified series that is sponsored by Pace-O-Matic as opposed to Sledge-O-Matic, which of course was made famous by Gallagher years ago. Pace-O-Matic's much cleaner and doesn't require the front row to throw a tarp over their heads when we get to the track. Luke Baldwin is the leading candidate to defend his title. Ryan Newman is still racing modifieds. And then, as you say, in comes Hermie Sadler. If you can own a team, why in the world can't you get out there and race? I think it's great. The Smart Modified Tour has made modified racing cool again in the South.
Yeah.
And you know, we've talked with the folks from Smart Modified Tour on this show before, and we're going to do so again soon because I love promoting this tour. It's a great way to go racing and watch racing for modifieds, and it's a viable alternative to late models in the South, and it's growing like crazy here. So excited for their tour this year, which opens, as we said, at Florence. We'll have results and stories on the next show about that. But yeah, just a great job that Chris Williams and his group have done with that.
For sure. And I do want to add, by the way, that Hermie Sadler is making his modified weekend comeback at 56 years young. So who says you can't be an older driver and still make a splash, right?
I love
it. All right, last lap bullet number 2. Hurricane Hocevar, as Mike Joy has taken to calling him, and Corey Day were both very hot topics on the radar over the weekend, and I'll argue that a lot of fans had, well, I don't want to say they had quite as different views of each one, Tom, as what some may have thought. I saw a lot of people kind of bludgeoning Hocevar for his late move trying to shoot the middle when he wrecked Christopher Bell, as I did for the couple of incidents that Corey Day was in, including wrecking the leaders in the O'Reilly race, that being Carson Quapple and Justin Allgaier at the time. Your thoughts on the two young drivers who both had very, as Corey put it, high-profile learning moments or high-visibility learning moments?
Well, I think it's interesting that everybody jumped on Corey Day, and of course they're always on Carson Hocevar. That's, but everybody jumping on Corey. This guy's a Kyle Larson protege. I thought it was Larson that made the biggest blunder of the entire weekend on Sunday when he basically went 3 lanes across traffic and turned into SVG. Yeah, I mean, and took himself out, which Kyle owned. But it's like, gosh, why don't we have the same disdain for Kyle when he screws up like that? Is it because he's won 2 championships? I mean, why is that? Corey Day needs practice. There's not nearly the practice time that there used to be, and Corey's making a big jump. He's got a sprint car mindset. He's taking into a long-distance NASCAR race. Guess who else did that early on? Kyle Larson. Guess who else did that in the beginning of his career? Jeff Gordon. Gee, I think it's turned out okay for those two. Give Corey some time. Now, quickly, Carson Hocevar. I love watching Carson Hocevar race, but I also get frustrated because I know how many races Carson's lost that he probably could have won, including possibly the last one at Atlanta, had he just not dialed it back a little bit. If he ever learns how to harness that inner winner inside him and that desire to go prove something, Carson Hocevar is going to win a whole bunch of races. So yeah, it's interesting to watch him. I can't fault him, but at the same time, I just know that with that little bit more time to get that top edge off himself, boy, he's got a bright future ahead.
He does, and he's working on trying to show it. I think already is the biggest thing. Final thing that we have on the last lap docket is, of course, the IndyCar officiating news that we've seen coming out, where the new guard is the old guard, just with a different label on it. You've got Kyle Novak, who is going to continue as race director for IndyCar and has been responsible for a lot of the competition regulations for Indy Next. And you've got Kevin Blanche that's going to continue as the technical director for IndyCar officiating as well. Okay, does it make sense to you?
No, because those are the same people that were there before we thought we needed an independent board. I don't understand why you just bring the same people back. I don't see what you changed at the end of the day there. IndyCar, this feels to me very, it feels like a very country club-esque move. And this is sort of how country clubs make decisions about, boards of directors and whatever. I don't know. I always find it strange when we go to this big extent of trying to create something new, and then when it's done, it looks exactly like what we had before.
Yeah, and I'll illustrate it with this quote from the tail end of the press release. This from one of the IndyCar officiating board members. Quote, "The officiating in IndyCar is not broken," end quote. If that tells you why they didn't change anything, that quote right there sums it up perfectly.
So why did you bother to go to the extent to create the board just to have the same people? If nothing was broke, why'd you feel you had to fix it? That's all I can say. And with that, we're going to close this show and say thank you to all of our sponsors and to all of you who watch. SteeringWheelNation.com all week long for exclusive content. And, of course, at The Wheel Nation on Facebook, X, and Instagram. You can find Jacob on X at Jacob Seelman 77. You can find me on there at the SWN Tom, and you can find me on LinkedIn as well. And we look forward to being back next week with another edition of the Tom Baker Show. Until then, SteeringWheelNation.com, InsideGroovePitPass.com. Our subscription community is open. Open wheel content galore inside there, and sim leagues coming up too. So long.